You guys see this gap right here? Yeah, that gap is something you're gonna wanna consider if you're thinking about buying the new Evade 3. What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new, my name's Chris, and here we explore some of the best products and places in the world. Like many of you out there, I do not get paid to ride a bike, but I still do find some time to ride about 7,500 miles a year. I enter the occasional race and love smashing the pedals with my friends in between real life, social, and work obligations. For some, helmets aren't something to get too excited about. I disagree. I think a good helmet plays a huge role in how you feel, how you perform, and is something that oftentimes will outlast the current bike that you're on. The Evade 2 was that helmet for me in the same way that the Evade 1 was. It was comfortable, it fit my head really well, and I really like the way that it looks. And I think that the third generation Evade will carry on that legacy, but not without a few quirks. As always with these videos, if you're looking for deep tech specs, I suggest visiting the brand's websites. I'm here to offer some real world thoughts after using this helmet for a little over 100 miles now. Let's start with aesthetics because I think this is where a lot of the initial battles are won and lost when it comes to a helmet. Right out of the box, I think the Evade looks really good. I'd give it an 8 out of 10. This particular model has been dubbed the Team Edition, and it has black accents on the rear, underneath, on the sides, and then it has S-Works in black right along the side. Looking at these two helmets from the front, you'll notice that the Evade 3 looks slightly slimmer than the 2, while looking just a hair more boxy. If you turn it to the side, you'll notice that you're missing two sets of vents as well as that top vent on top of the helmet. If you flip both helmets around and look at them from the rear, you'll see that the rear diffuser has been completely redesigned. And I think that this is probably one of the coolest elements of the helmet. It looks like the rear diffuser is much bigger, and aesthetically, I think it looks like something that you would find on a 458 or a McLaren P1, or something that Vorsteiner concocted up as an aftermarket part for a supercar. It sounds really cheesy, but I think this is the most beautiful design element of this helmet. So that's out of the box, but what does it look like on your head? That gap? Yeah, let's talk about that gap. The Evade 3 appears to have a lower profile top to bottom, which is great until you put it on top of your head and you notice that it sits much higher. Again, not a big deal until you put sunglasses on and realize that the gap between the top of your sunglasses and the bottom of the helmet is massive. Those sunglasses that you thought were too big, well, now with this helmet, they look tiny. If you're wearing a pair of old Oakley radar locks or something like that, they're now going to look like kids' sunglasses. For the last few months, I've been wearing the 100% S3 sunglasses, and even with those, which I would consider pretty big glasses, I think the gap is just too big. Now, of course, aesthetics are subjective, and I understand that everybody's gonna have a different opinion here. But for me, offering my opinion, I think you've gotta go bigger glasses if you're using the new Evade. I'm going back to the Glendales, which I think are probably the largest glasses that I would feel comfortable wearing. In fact, they're so big that my kids call them the ski goggles. From a performance and comfort perspective, I think the Evade 3 is just as good, if not better, than the outgoing Evade 2. Logically, you may think that with the reduction of vents that the Evade 3 would run hotter than the Evade 2. My experience has shown that it runs just about the same. Maybe it's a hair cooler. It's really hard to know, but I didn't notice that the Evade 3 runs much hotter. Granted, it's nothing like the old Prevail or even the new Prevail, but it's still really, really good for an aero helmet. While I raised the warning flag about how high the helmet sits on your head and that gap between your glasses and the bottom of the helmet, I do think that from a comfort perspective, this is an advantage with the Evade 3. And I say that because one of my complaints about the Evade 2, maybe my only complaint, was that I would often have my glasses hit the top of the helmet, thus pushing into the bridge of my nose. Not a big deal on short rides, but when you're out there for a few hours, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours, you really start to feel that. And I know that I will have no issues with that with the Evade 3. So from that perspective, it's just a matter of finding the right sunglasses to close that gap from an aesthetic perspective. Additionally, this has MIPS, which I think is a great feature, and it's something that I've really begun to trust. I also think that it's starting to drive my decision-making process when I purchase a new helmet. At $300, I think this is a fair value for this helmet. Of course, I would love for it to be less expensive, but when I look at all the features and I look at comparable helmets across the space, I think it's right in line at that $300 mark. And look, At $300, if there was something that I was gonna spend a little bit more money on, I think a helmet is probably a worthwhile purchase. From a safety perspective, from the marginal gains that you get from the aerodynamics, as well as the comfort. Look, it's kind of like shoes. I think you get what you pay for. Alternatively, I think you could consider the Casque for Tony Icon in that $300 range. I think that's probably a more well-rounded helmet. You're gonna get a little bit better ventilation, you lose a little bit of the aerodynamics, but I think if you're looking for like a one do-it-all helmet, that is a really, really good option. And how does this stack up against the Prevail 3? Well, I've also got that helmet and I am a huge fan. And that's what we're gonna talk about next week is the Prevail 3 and just why I think that is probably one of the best helmets on the market today. If this video has been helpful, please do me a huge favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and until next time,